I'm Ryan from ExtremeTerrain.com, and this is my review and installation of the Fox 2.0 Performance Series Reservoir adjustable shock fitting all 2007 and up JKs. Of course, these shocks are available for both the front and the rear of your JK. They're available for 1.5 to 3.5 inches of lift or 4 to 6 inches of lift. And if you are getting the set for the smaller lift sizes, there is a kit available that includes all 4 of the shocks that will save you a few dollars. Today we are going to talk through the installation of these shocks, which is a very simple 1 out of 3 wrench installation. These will install like most other shocks in the factory location using factory hardware. So these are going to install in your Jeep in about a half an hour per shock. So a very easy install. But again, we'll talk more about that in just a second. We're also going to talk through the construction and a few of the features of these shocks. A shock is the single component that affects the ride and handling characteristics of your Jeep the most. And there are a couple of different types of shocks out there. There are nitrogen charged shocks like the one you see here, and there are hydraulic shocks. Now, when a shock is worked really hard, like in a high-speed desert racing situation going over washboards, the fluid inside of every shock can start to boil, bubble, cavitate, which can cause shock fade. Now, the nitrogen charge in a shock like this one is there to eliminate that cavitation and eliminate that shock fade. Now, a reservoir shock takes that even further. The remote-mounted reservoir allows for additional fluid and additional nitrogen charge, making this shock even less susceptible to shock fade. Now, for what most of us are using our Jeeps for, we're not going to be working a shock that hard that you're going to get a lot of fade. However, if you are interested in that characteristic of a shock, a nitrogen-charged hydraulic shock is a nice way to go. Now, this shock is also going to be adjustable. So if you really want to fine-tune the ride, the handling, and the off-road and on-road characteristics of your JK, having a tunable adjustable shock like this makes it very easy. This has a 8-way adjustable knob right on the top of the reservoir. Now, most Fox shocks and some other brands of shocks you can get rebuilt with different valving in them. However, this makes it very easy at home to just change that dial and affect the ride quality of your vehicle. Now, as you can tell, this is a nitrogen charged reservoir adjustable shock. This does have a lot of bells and whistles, and it's from the company that has done a ton of research that is really well known in the racing world and puts a lot of that technology into this shock. So you are going to be paying at the top of the price range for this shock. However, you are going to get a lot of benefits, and you are going to get a very comfortable and adjustable ride quality. As it says right in the name, this is Fox's Performance Series shock. And they have the Performance Series, they have the Adventure Series, and they have the Stock Replacement Series. Now, the Performance Series is going to be the top of the line. This is a 6061 T6 aluminum bodied shock that does have a clear anodized finish over the top of it. So the great looking Fox shock that you're going to get right out of the box is going to continue to look good for a very long time. Some of the lower tiers of Fox shocks are either powder coated or they're not as high a grade of aluminum as these ones are. A couple other big benefits to this shock is the way that the bushings are designed, built, and the materials that they're manufactured out of. That's going to ensure that the bushings stay quiet and that they hold up for a good long time. This shock, because it does have the reservoir, does come with an aluminum bracket that allows you to bolt the external reservoir to the main body of the shock, or of course you can remote mount the reservoir up on the frame if you choose to. You do have a bit of braided stainless line here, so it gives you a little bit of flexibility as far as where you put that reservoir. And finally, up on top here, as we said before, you do have 8 clicks of compression adjustability. So you can adjust the handling and ride characteristics of this shock very, very simply. Because this shock is set up specifically for your JK, it is designed to bolt directly in place of your factory shock, making the install very, very simple. As I said before, 1 out of 3 wrenches for this install in under a half an hour per shock. All you need to do to get these installed is to jack up the Jeep, remove the tire to gain access to the area where the shock is mounted. Up front, you're going to have a lower shock bolt and an upper shock bolt. In the rear, a lower shock bolt and 2 uppers that go directly into the bottom of the tub. All you need to do is remove that factory hardware and bolt your new shock in place of that factory shock, again, very, very simply. The only thing that can make this a little bit of a difficult install is if you have some rust, especially up front. If your front upper shock nut is rusted onto your factory shock, it can be very difficult to get that off. There isn't a lot of room in that area. You can't really get a cutoff wheel in there or even a wrench very easily. So I do recommend spraying all of the hardware well ahead of time with a good penetrating oil, especially if you're in an area that has caused some rust on your Jeep. That will definitely pay some dividends when you go to install this. Worst case scenario, if things are really rusted in place, we just put a nice long bar on it. You can break the nut and the threaded rod off the top of your factory shock. You're not going to be reusing that anyway to get that factory shock out of the way. As we said before, traditional hand tools, half an hour shock, very easy install. Because Fox does have so many years of R&D that they've taken from racing and put into this shock, and the fact that they use premium materials, especially on this Performance Series shock, means that this is, again, at the top of the price range. This adjustable shock is around $100 more than the non-adjustable Reservoir Performance Series 2.0 shock. So if you're going to be using the adjustability of this shock, it's definitely worth it for the additional $100. However, if you're not going to be using it, you can save yourself $100 a shock and go with the non-adjustable version of this shock. Furthermore, if you're not going to be taking advantage of the Reservoir, there are Performance 2.0 series shocks from Fox that are going to be even less expensive that simply don't have the Reservoir. So Fox really does have a whole line of shocks available for your JK. All of them are going to give you a really great ride quality. You get to select the build quality, how much you want to spend, and the features that you get. Again, this shock in particular is going to be top of the line as far as features and build quality, so it is also at the top of the price range. So if you're looking for a very well-built and adjustable Reservoir shock for your JK, this Performance Series shock from Fox is going to be just that. You're certainly going to have to pay for the features and the quality that you're getting, but if you have the budget for it and you're looking for a very high quality part, this is going to be a great option to take a look at. So that's my review of the Fox 2.0 Performance Series Reservoir adjustable shock fitting all 2007 and up JKs that you can find right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.